from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Wednesday, August 9th. So today we will see the moon in Taurus go void of course at 6:39 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be locking into Gemini energy at 9:06 a.m. So a pretty short window where the moon will be void, and of course that is a good thing because when the moon goes void, things get a little bit shaky and uncertain, and we're not as sure about some of the things that we've arrived at until we lock into this new energy. Now, the transition from Taurus energy to Gemini energy always lightens the mood, lightens the vibe, because we're moving out of that fixed earth sign where we are having to be present, having to be in our physical realms, having to be very connected to our physical body, to our physical circumstances. We really slow the roll while the moon is in Taurus energy. The moon in Gemini energy, we lighten the vibe. We're moving into an air sign. We move up into our headspace. We are starting to kind of formulate different plans, different strategies. Curiosity comes out. We have new questions. Of course, the days prior with the moon in Taurus should have kind of illuminated for us where it is that we have to process some of the circumstances in our lives. Of course, we just had the last quarter moon in Taurus energy, giving us an opportunity to really see for ourselves the hints and clues in our physical realm on who and what needs to stay and needs to go. Now we're going to process that from a cerebral point of view. We're really kind of moving into the mental plane. We're really putting some pieces together. We're kind of a little bit scatterbrained, I would say. We're just happy that we can kind of move out of the present moment, being grounded, being earthed out, if you will. And now we're starting to kind of see things from a different set of eyes, a different perspective, really getting those wheels a turning. So there's that. Now we have 10 different aspects here today. 6 of them are going to involve the moon. And realistically speaking, the quote unquote star of the show here today, or the attempt to be the star of the show here today, is Mercury. Mercury, of course, ruler of the mental plane, ruler of information, communication, and how it is that we express ourselves. Mercury not only rules over Wednesdays, but rules over the Gemini energy that the moon will be transitioning into. So we can definitely expect a lot of mental pressure. Now, mental pressure doesn't need to be a bad thing. It just means that we're rapidly processing new ideas, new thoughts, new perspectives, new information, new details. And so we are going to have a little bit of help, both in a quote unquote pressure-filled conflict, tension type of situation, because of course that leads us to make a decision, a choice, a change. And we also have some supporting aspects with Mercury here today that, of course, will help us kind of process, heal, grow, and improve, make some progress, if you will, on piecing together a plan and a strategy. So we are going to kick the day off with Mercury, who is in his place of power in Virgo energy, also in his pre-retro shade period, mind you, because we are going retrograde on 23rd. Mercury's going to be making an interaction with Pluto. We kind of felt this energy build here yesterday, but of course, with the last quarter moon pressure in Taurus, it was hard to kind of discern the energies where they were stemming from. But Mercury and Pluto, when they come together, it does intensify our mental plane, and probably not in the nicest way. It does bring on a lot of conflict, a lot of blockages in our mental plane, a lot of tension, definitely can create some poor communication. We're having a hard time really coming together and articulating what it is that is going on in our inner realm. We're failing miserably trying to convey those particular message outside of us. And there's a little bit of paranoia, a little bit of suspicion that comes up with this Plutonian energy. And it's almost like we're on edge. We are kind of defensive, and we almost take it as a personal jab, a personal insult. If people aren't listening to us, or they don't agree with us, or they're just not receiving our information well, it just kind of irks us. It's really bothering us that we just don't seem like we're on the same page. And of course, that's going to put us in a situation to process who and what needs to stay and needs to go. Now, Mercury is then going to interact with Chiron, the wounded healer, who, of course, is retrograde in this Aries energy, giving us an opportunity to really examine why it is that we're not feeling so hot, why it is that we're still struggling with imposter syndrome, why it is that we're having such a hard time letting go of parts of self in order to embody the new qualities of this version of self that we are emerging into. Of course, that rebirth is going to take place on the 13th when Venus has her resurrection, has her rebirth, has her renewal. So from now until then, we are going to be sorting through a lot of thoughts, a lot of emotions, really tackling where it is that we should overcome some of these, I'm going to say, looping thoughts, looping emotions, looping memories in order for us to kind of crack the code and elevate ourselves to this new version of self. So Mercury interacting with Chiron, it is a positive interaction, which means that we should be having some aha moments, especially coming out of that funk with Pluto. This means that we are going to be fixing, solving, healing some issues because, of course, Mercury being in Virgo energy, that's what we're all about. And we're going to see some growth. We're going to see some progress. We're going to see a lot of improvement, not only in our mental plane with the mental narrative, but with a lot of the emotions that we are now trying to kind of pinpoint and say, hey, yep, this has been going on in my programming. It's been blocking me from making some moves or feeling good about myself. Let's unpack it. Let's dissect it. Let's see where the primary root cause comes from and let's grow through it. Let's heal it. So we're definitely making some progress there. The moon, while still in Taurus energy, is going to sextile, beautiful interaction with Neptune, who is retrograde in Pisces energy. And we love this. Why do we love this? Well, because Neptune is retrograde, which means that, Neptune rules over our spirituality. He rules over our intuition, our dreams, our imagination, our inspiration, the higher realms of intelligence, if you will. Now, many of us not so comfortable with Neptune's retrograde because, of course, we can't escape to La La Land and kind of live in a projection of our futuristic reality. We have to confront the here and now. We have to wrap up what is lingering. We have to provide endings and closures to some of the things that are creating these bumps, these bruises, these blockages in us kind of making progress moving forward. So again, with all the retrograde planets, with all of the overlapping ending of cycles, this is a little bit, I'm going to say, uncomfortable for many people, but this is a positive interaction, which means that we're taking a really grounded, really logical, practical approach with some of the ideas, some of the dreams, some of the visions, some of the goals that we're percolating on right now. And we do have the ability to kind of bring them from our highest realms where, inspiration gets downloaded in. We're able to bring it down into the physical body, into the mental plane, into the heart space, really kind of process whether or not we have the ability to bring some of these things to life. The moon is then going to interact with the North Node in Aries energy. We love this because it means that we're piecing things together, albeit it's very low, very slow, very steady, because that's the nature of the beast when we're talking about Taurus energy. It's an earth energy, so nothing happens fast. It's a fixed sign, so there is a resistance to change. However, the North Node in Aries is trying to get us on the right path in order for us to move forward. Now, this Aries energy, this is the edginess, this is the impulse, this is the urgency that we are constantly being bombarded with. Like, we should be further along in our experiences than we actually are. That is just an ego trip. Don't let that fool you. However, this particular interaction is making some solid plans. Even if it's a baby steps still count. And therefore, we are seeing a little bit of progress in piecing together a plan, a strategy on how it is that we do plan on moving forward, making some changes, making some transformations. The last aspect that the moon in Taurus is going to make before going void of course is a beautiful one. It's a trine with Pluto, the great transformer himself, who is retrograde in the Capricorn energy. We get the trine because the moon in Taurus, earth sign, Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, earth sign. Earth signs work together. Any elements work together. A trine is a gentle nudge moving forward, a harmonization, a blending of the energies. And what I love about Pluto is that he always seems to swoop in and give us an extra little oomph before we end a cycle. And in this case, we're talking about ending the moon being in Taurus energy, gives us a logical, practical, down to earth approach on what needs to shift in our inner realm. The Plutonian energy likes to really do a deep dive in our psyche, in our programming, in our conditioning. We have a light bulb moment. We understand where change is needed. We wrap our head around it. It creates a domino effect. We change our emotions around this circumstance and situation, and we move into a preparatory mode where we're able to start actually visualizing the movement moving forward. This is when the moon goes void, of course. While the moon is void, still in this Taurus energy, we have Venus, who rules over the Taurus energy, who is currently retrograde in Leo energy, the heart and soul of the zodiac, squaring off with Uranus, the great awakener, who is in Taurus energy that again Venus rules over. So I spoke about this yesterday. Yesterday we had the moon conjunct bumping into, teaming up with Uranus, which was a precursor to this particular aspect of Venus squaring off with Uranus. We also had the moon square off with Venus yesterday. That kind of set us up for today. So let's talk about it. Venus, as you know, she's going through her retrograde. This is the dark night of the soul for her unconscious self. She's in the underworld. She's stripping away her falsehoods. She's stripping away the layers of who it is that she had to be in order to survive the struggles, the obstacles that she was faced with. And now she realizes that she's kind of overcome those particular situations. But the survivor version of self, the warrior version of self, some of those parts are no longer needed for this particular chapter of creation. So she is about to be reborn, resurrected, renewed on the 13th. This particular interaction I've described, this is just my own little analogy here. It's almost like she's been laying in this dark pit, crying, feeling like the victim, waiting for somebody to come save her, really piecing together how it is that she got here, what choices she made, what she could do differently, really tearing herself down, beating herself up, so to speak. There is a certain point in time prior to her resurrection where she kind of gets a bitch slap of truth, if you will, and she gets a jolt of energy to kind of snap her out of this particular beat down and kind of puts her in a position to realize, hey, I got to sit up, I got to shake my head, I got to dust this dirt off, I got to climb out of this hole, I got to save myself because nobody's coming to save me. So the way that I kind of have described this particular juncture, because of course we still have a couple of days before her rebirth, Uranus is like this jolt of electricity, this lightning bolt, if you will. And I've kind of described this particular interaction as the defibrillator. Right? So Uranus is coming in, he's seeing the goddess just curled up in the fetal position. He's like, what is this girl doing? She's a hot mess. How is she going to dig herself out of this hole when she won't stop crying? She won't even sit up. He kind of throws a lightning bolt at her or defibrillates her heart, gets that started again, gives her this zest of energy, brings her back to life, so to speak, but not resurrection-like, just a jolt like, hey, what am I doing? I'm not a whiny, cryy little BI. At this particular point, I need to step in to my goddess energy. I need to sit up, clean myself off, and actually get a game plan on how it is that I plan to save myself. This is what this particular interaction is kind of feeling to me. So to take it even more, I mean, obviously the tension is there, the conflict is there. We're still kind of whiny and cryy because, you know, we're in a dark pit. We're having to basically put an ending, a death, a closure to who it is that we've been and some of the things in which we've created while we were that particular person and version of self. But we're kind of struggling because we don't know how to get out of this dark pit. We're recognizing where it is that if we got out of this dark pit, do we really want to go back to our lives the way that they were? Because we've realized sitting in this dark pit that we're really not happy with it. We've actually gone to certain lengths of visualizing what we would change if we ever got out of this dark pit, what we would do if we had a new lease on life, what we want to accomplish or experience if we ever got out of this pit that we're finding ourselves in. So now there's this like conjuring up of these possibilities, and we're still sitting in the bottom of the pit in the dark, and we're recognizing the struggle here, right? The struggle of getting ourselves up, dusting ourselves off, and actually being our own hero. and B, all the changes that we want to make once we actually get out of this dark pit, and the kind of strength that that's going to require out of us. So there's this struggle. It's almost like, at least if I stay in this dark pit, yeah, I might be alone. And, I might not know if I ever get out of here, and I might starve to death, but geez, at least that kind of frees me up from the accountability and responsibility of having to take charge of my life and actually, cut people out and rearrange my physical realm to actually align with my higher self instead of the ego self that's built this mess. Right? So there's this back and forth. Like, do we really want to get out of the hole? Are we comfortable in this state of victimhood mentality? Would we feel better to sit here and let life go on without us? Or should we boss up? Should we really step into our power? Should we actually take control of our lives? So there's this like discontentment versus, I'm going to say the want, need, and desire to get out of the pit and resolve some of the issues that create the discontentment in the first place. And so we are still kind of sorting through whether or not we're aligned with bossing up to a new level that's going to require us to be a new version of self in order for us to stand in our power to rearrange our physical realms, cut some people out, cut subtopics out, leave certain parts of ourself in the past in order to actually stand in our power of creation. So this is like the defibrillator of Uranus energy, giving us a shock and understanding where it is that we're holding on to desperately to the old lives in which we've created because they're comfortable, basically predictable. And we're also tapping into that, revival warrior spirit where we're like, you know what, this is crazy. If I ever get out of this pit, if I ever break free from this funk, I'm going to boss up. I'm going to do what I need to do in order to be happy. So it's kind of like that argument that we're having within ourselves. So as I previously mentioned, the moon is going to lock into this Gemini energy, 9:06 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, almost 12 hours later. Okay, we're sitting in the moon in Gemini for the bulk of the day, no aspects. Literally, the reverberation from the Venus square Uranus, we need to sit in that pretty much all day. Okay, so 6:13 p.m., we have the moon now in Gemini energy, semi-squaring, creating a little bit of a tension and a conflict with Chiron, who is retrograde in Aries energy. So what this is doing is it's really pushing our mental plane to sort out where it is that we are essentially closing the door or releasing our power, our control over this victimhood mentality. We are processing who and what needs to stay, needs to go. But realistically, we're trying to build ourselves up at our mental plane on who it is that we desire to be, what that's going to require from us, what the first thing we're going to do or we need to do once we get out of this dark pit. So there's a little bit of tension there because we're really kind of trying to rack our brains around what we need to do to break free from this old version of self, from this old storyline, this old timeline, this old reality. And in that, what is actually going to be required of us to boss up to the next level of standing in our power and restructuring, reorganizing our physical realms more in alignment with our higher self. The moon goes ahead, interacts with the sun. Lucky for us, this is a beautiful energy. Now, the moon represents our past, our emotions, our unconscious self, our intuition. The sun shining a bright light on our life force energy, where it is that we have to essentially express through our ego avatar the changes in our soul, in our spirit. So the sun is kind of shining a bright light on the future. And in this Leo energy, we have to be bold. We have to be brave. We have to be courageous. We have to stand in our truth. We have to stand in our new mission, in our new purpose. We have to kind of do what we need to do to stand away from the crowd, kind of dance to the beat of our own drum, align with our heart space, really get in tune with who and what makes us happy, what we want more of, what we want to create from here. While the moon, if you will, representing the past and our emotions in this Gemini energy, trying to really process the narrative that we have to let go of in order to be able to boss up to the sun's energy here in this Leo energy, wanting us to be bold, brave, and courageous like Leo the lion is. So this is a beautiful interaction, which means that there's an overlap It means that we're seeing very clearly the old narrative, the old perspective, the old ideas, the old everything, what we have to let go of in order to create the space, in order to have the space to build something new. And we will be building those new elements after Venus kind of gets reborn on the 13th and new versions of ourselves emerge. The moon is going to square off with Saturn. Okay, so this is Debbie Downer type of energy. The square creates a tension and a conflict in order for us to see what needs to change the most, what needs to change the fastest. Saturn, who is the Lord of Karma, who rules over our roles, responsibilities, the structures, foundations in our lives, he is retrograde in Pisces energy, trying to wrap up a 30-year cycle, even more than that, trying to really sort out the pain and the trauma that we're holding on to that essentially is creating the energy blockages, preventing us from actually moving forward, healing certain wounds, and aligning with the new vibration and frequency that will usher in the new ideas, the new goal, the new dream, the new vision. So we're kind of sorting out our old belief system, our old pain and trauma, our old memories, our old experiences. We're really kind of taking a good look on why we had to go through certain tough love life lessons in order to prepare us for this pivotal moment where we are going to break free of the past and really stand in the power of the here and now in order to really take control of our lives, tap into that creator creation type of energy and be able to manifest a life, a realm, a reality that is happy and joyful and safe and secure and stable. Many of us haven't had that. So this square is kind of like our emotional and mental realm getting into the boxing ring and fighting it out with some of the old memories, the old ideas, the old dreams, the old beliefs, and really kind of hacking through the ones that we're no longer in alignment with in order to free us up, to renew ourselves, to renew our soul, to renew our spirit so that we can get in alignment with this new vibration and frequency of the creator energy. So that's a little bit of a Debbie Downer type of vibe. Saturn always kind of brings us a reality check. He brings us down a couple of notches. He definitely shows us the pain, the trauma, the struggle, the obstacles, the challenges in order for us to basically boss up and override them. And where the moon in Gemini is concerned, this is overriding the narrative, first of all, in the mental plane, which of course creates the domino effect in our emotional space, changing the way that we feel about old situations, old circumstances, due to flipping of the script in our mental plane, in our mental narrative. So the last thing that we have going on here today is Mercury trining beautiful energy with Jupiter. So let's talk about it. Jupiter is the planet of growth, expansion, beliefs, abundance, blessings. He's the spiritual wisdom. He's the knowledge, the wisdom that we've accumulated from the tough love life lessons that we had to go through. So Jupiter is in Taurus energy, right? It's a low, slow, steady pace that we are, building and creating. And it's not going to really be until May of 2024 when we look back to May of 2023 before we realize, holy crap, we actually did make some progress. Doesn't feel like we're moving forward. Doesn't feel like we're making any progress. We in fact are. It's just so slow, so minimal that those baby steps, they don't feel like we're moving anywheres, but in the greater, grander picture of things, we're definitely moving forward. Okay, so Mercury is in its place of power in Virgo energy. We're looking to identify the smaller details of the greater, grander plan that Jupiter has for us. Mercury being in Virgo energy wants to really focus on those smaller details to identify the problems, to really kind of explore the variables, to really kind of dive into the possibilities that are available to us. But what this does, because Virgo energy is an earth energy, Taurus energy is an earth energy, this is where the trine comes in. This is a gentle nudge forward. We're harmonizing, we're blending these energies. This is a boost of confidence, and it's coming at a great time, especially after we just got out of the boxing ring fighting it out with reality checker Mr. Saturn himself. So this is going to bring our vibe back up. We are definitely more in a positive mind state. We are more hopeful than we have been. We're renewing our faith, our trust, not only within ourselves, but the greater, grander process of the universe, kind of piecing things together for us. It is exactly what we need to get out of that kind of dark mindset. And again, I'm always going to bring back to Venus. We have to get in the right mindset before we start climbing our ass out of this dark pit. Okay. So this is going to help us do that. We're trusting the process. We're feeling a little bit more hopeful that we can actually get our shit together and get out of this hole and actually create a realm that reflects how, I'm going to say, how our higher self wants us to live versus how our ego had us living. So this is a beautiful opportunity to tap into the bigger dream, the bigger goal, bigger vision, if you will, the big picture of what Jupiter wants us to really focus on, which is creating opportunities for stability, for safety, for security, for happiness, for joy. We get to take that big picture and then we tap into that Mercury and Virgo energy, which is able to kind of break it up into small, manageable pieces so that we're not setting ourselves up for disappointment when we bite off more than we can chew when we never seem to reach the goalpost. Instead, breaking it down, understanding what we can do in the run of our day here today to align with that great big grand vision that we're looking to actually manifest. This is going to help us set small goals that we can achieve, that we can celebrate, that we can check off the list so that we're not waiting until May of 2024 to actually feel like we've been successful in achieving some sort of goal that is taking us a very long time to actually get there. So this particular energy is giving us the right mind frame, giving us the right narrative, giving us the ability to sort through the smaller details of what is needing to happen in order for us to bring that great big dream and vision to life.